Hi, my name is Bruce Parkman. I'm the CEO of Blue Light, a leading provider of predictive analytical solutions to numerous use cases throughout the United States. And we welcome you to this webinar on our predictive analytical solution designed to combat school violence called the Safe Campus. A little bit about myself. I am the CEO of Blue Light, as I said earlier. Our company has been around predictive analytics since 2004 when we first started training the military. We've overseen numerous successful applications of predictive analytics in terms of combating violence for the military and law enforcement, as well as theft and fraud in the commercial environment. I do consider myself a subject matter expert on the application of predictive violence. I am the visionary behind the Safe Campus, as I felt that school violence has considerable overlap with other use cases that we have seen within the U.S. Regarding violence. It's basically the same problem. Violent individuals acting out and causing harm. They have different objectives, of course, than, say, a terrorist or some of the other individuals that we have dealt with. But I'm also a caring and concerned parent, as I'm sure many of you are on this webinar today. And that's why taking the lessons learned over the last 15 years and applying them to this devastating problem is so important to me and this company. Regarding the topic of school violence in America, I'm pretty sure everybody on this webinar, as well as I, are pretty much educated to the point that this is something that needs to stop. 2018 was the worst year ever for school shootings. And, we have hundreds of thousands of kids now going to schools where a school shooting event has occurred, and they're scared. My son was recently at a homecoming dance where a student that had been dismissed for emotional reasons put out a text to everybody at the school indicating that, that something bad could happen, and set the whole school on edge, destroyed the dance. Parents were picking up their kids. It was a mess. And we have to give our kids back that sense of security when they go to school. They deserve it, and we as parents deserve it. And that is one of the most critical reasons behind our development of this solution. So when we look at our attitudes towards school security over the last couple of years, this problem of school violence and this never-ending drip of school shootings has caused us to change our considerations dramatically. If you were to come to any parents in the last 3 to 4 years and say, I'm going to put an armed guard in your parking lots, metal detectors on your doors, they would have said, no way. Now, it's when are they going to get installed? Where is that guy? I want him out in the parking lot. The problem with some of these solutions is they're very expensive. People cost a lot of money. Metal detectors cost a lot of money. There's concerns about privacy when you start, monitoring somebody's texts or whatever. And so another approach to school violence is warranted. We are finding that students are becoming more vocal. We saw that after the Parkland shooting. In talks with board officials, they're now sharing more than ever. Texting and sexting photos. They're coming to their parents saying, Mom, Dad, look at this. What can we do? But a platform is needed to ingest that information so that decisions can be made to take care of the school in terms of safety. And now we're seeing politicians and organizations shifting money and focus to this problem. It was pretty much unimaginable that a school shooting could take place and 30 days later nobody cared. Now everybody knows it is a problem, and we're seeing that focus come back to this because it is something that should be addressed and if possibly stopped. So an underlying theme when we look at school violence is as assessments are being done, and we were called in after a major school shooting last year to help out the law enforcement in determining what could have happened. We are finding that a more predictive approach towards school violence is greatly desired by parents, teachers, and the schools. We do feel that by becoming more predictive in their analytics and their approach towards school violence, we can become more preventive, lowering incidents and getting these children the help that they have. Because there are incidents where shooters have posted their intent or sent their intent to to children. They have had no mechanism to get that information, possibly anonymously, to the people that could make decisions. And by becoming predictive, we allow for intervention. Instead of waiting for that moment when that kid comes out of the car with a gun, we allow them to get counseling and medical treatment and social skills training, all critical in stopping the escalation of violence. So when we look at a predictive analytics solution and how it could be integrated into a safer school, we can look at the Department of Education report that outlines three major components. And as you look at those three major components, it's the second one where all of our problems with school violence starts and fails, is that we fail to identify these kids in their moment of need and get them the help they deserve. So when we look at predictive analytics and our solution, the Safe Campus, we extend that a bit. We don't even just look at the students. We're looking at parents, teachers, employees, administrators, anybody that's in the school ecosystem that could be harmed or that could cause harm, to get even them the help that they need if it's warranted. So we look at school shooters, which is the most violent form of violence in our schools today. You'll see why we're so adamant about the use of predictive analytics, because predictive analytics helps us identify violent individuals that are not so readily identifiable through other mechanisms that exist, whether it's the military, law enforcement, or our schools. When you look at the student shooter population, nothing really stands out. They come from two-parent families, got normal academic records on the whole. There are some other factors that we can take into consideration. Race is a factor. 93% of them are white, but that's a statistically large segment of our population. When we dial into the fact that 87% of them have reported being bullied, that is a trigger that we can use immediately to focus on when we're looking at the data sets that the school, or the databases that the school has. So this is why predictive analytics is so important, is that because of its ability to assess, analyze, and look at large amounts of data, we are able to detect patterns and trends leading to violent acts and get ahead of them by identifying problematic individuals and getting them the help that they need. So obviously, this is why we feel the time to apply data analytics or predictive analytics is now. The schools have on hand massive amounts of data that is not being assessed or analyzed, particularly in regards to school violence. That data belongs to them, it's given to them, and if it can be used to help secure the student population and the school's population as a whole, we feel it should be. Predictive analytics is non-invasive. We don't have, individuals with guns. We don't have metal detectors outside, bars on the windows. We were talking to one board member whose child goes to a glass school, like there's glass windows everywhere. It's one of these modern edifices, but it's not bulletproof. It's not probably even rock-proof, and she's overly concerned. So when you take a non-invasive approach, such as predictive analytics with school databases, and you integrate other external data sources, such as open source information, such as what's out there on Google, social media alerts, and even integrating with law enforcement emergency management systems or record management systems, we can gather so much data that we can create a very, very granular picture of those individuals that need attention right now. And by continuously querying those external data sources, we can get indicators that an individual now has a problem that wasn't apparent a couple months ago, and now we can move to get that individual the help they need. And so through all this information that's available, that is why now a predictive approach, vice a reflexive or responsive approach, is what we should be looking at in regards to school safety. So what is the role of predictive analytics within the overall concept of a safer school? Well, predictive analytics has been a proven tool in the fights against violence and crime for years. We have personally used it, as I said, since 2004. whether it's humanitarian operations, money laundering, counter drug operations, human and sex trafficking, anywhere where crime and violence has been involved. These tools and this approach towards addressing the violence through analytics has always worked. Additionally, we're not stuck with just one database with the Safe Campus solution. Because of our platform, that school district can have multiple databases reaching back into the 80s and 90s, and we can make those databases work for them. We don't have to migrate them. So by being able to grab different forms of data and then disparate data sets, not just within the school, but externally, and aggregating that, we can predict and intervene against violence. And this is what makes a predictive analytical solution so powerful. And as you'll see, it is affordable, it is intuitive, it's not rocket science, and the school can literally operate the system and take better care of its students. So when we look at predictive analytics, we can also look at, when it comes to school shooting, that there is existing data that has been left behind. As I stated before, we have worked on several shooting cases here in the U.S., some of the most prolific ones. And we have found, and as some of you all know, that some of these shooters have left indicators or hints of their intent out there on social media. We're also finding that sometimes there is no correlation between arrest records and what goes on the law enforcement side and the schools. So we don't see that integration of arrest records and school data that over time should happen, and we're seeing that happen more and more in schools. Additionally, there's new anonymous social media platforms out there. A lot of schools have them now. We have partners that provide these solutions that allow students and teachers and employees to text anonymously information that can be used to identify problematic individuals and get them the help they need. And then, of course, mental health records is a very, very significant PII concern. But when in the hands of a HIPAA compliant and FERPA compliant system such as the Safe solution, can be utilized to assess student populations and get them the help that they need. Because we're finding that 60% of these shooters had a mental illness, but only 33% sought care. So we can use this information to make sure that students that have sought care are being helped, that they're part of a continuous approach to treating them and keeping them from escalating and conducting acts of violence. So when we talk about predictive analytics, we have to talk about the predictive analytics cycle. This slide looks busy, but basically it's a very simple cycle. We have used this continuously and against other forms of violence all the time over the last 15 years. It starts with collecting the information, where we work with the school to collect all the information, identify the databases that are out there, identify the form of the data, the structure of the data. We can even take unstructured data and ingest it and analyze it at the same time. We also identify those external databases the school wants, or data sources, social media, GoogleNet, whatever it is. The next step is processing, by which we make that data discoverable, and we're able to bring the data, or make that data not only discoverable, but be able to query it to bring all the relevant information into a single database in order to be analyzed, which is our third step. And through the analysis and assessment, we're querying that data for indicators of violence and identifying trends and patterns that might indicate a violent event is taking place. Or if we get notified that a violent event is imminent, get as much information on that individual as possible from databases and get them to the authorities so they can respond immediately. Then we publish that and report it to school authorities, and then they work within their existing chains of command. All this is done by the school, not by us. We're merely the software provider, but the predictive analytics cycle is key to ensuring that the schools maximize the data they have on hand and get the corresponding benefit of a safer school out of it. So the Safe Campus is our predictive analytical solution that we have created for the schools to combat school violence. It leverages our proprietary Blue Fusion platform, which basically is a plugin that bolts onto a software piece called I2 Analyst Notebook and gives it very, very powerful and advanced analytical capabilities that allows the schools to do more with their data. And through our Blue Fusion platform, we allow the schools to process their own internal and external data. It gives them alerting and reporting capabilities, as we talked, the final part of the predictive analytics cycle, to alert the right individuals to make the right decisions. It allows the schools to interface with law enforcement, records management, and emergency management systems. And furthermore, this is the school solution. So all the analytics take place by school authorized personnel behind the firewall to make sure that any concerns about privacy are maintained. So once this solution is installed, it belongs to the school. It's not a blue light solution. We're the software folks, but we have created the school and made it trainable, affordable, and intuitive. So once it's installed, it's turnkey, and we train the school up, and then they're doing everything that we have talked about in terms of assessing their own data and becoming more predictive in their approach. And finally, it allows for auditing by school officials so that there is no abuse within the school system of the data. And because we allow the data to remain at rest, we avoid the largest problem that we hear from schools, which is, please don't migrate our data. We have connected the databases that are from the 80s for law enforcement agencies, and we can do it for any school that's out there. So the data just stays where it's at, in the form it's at, which is of enormous relief to the schools. So when we look at the Safe Campus, we have to look at, the limitations that we took a look at as developers to make sure that this solution can be used by schools. So we were very thorough in our approach and design of the system to ensure that the schools remain compliant with any compliance and privacy mandates that they fall under. So it is designed to work within the parameters expressed by social media platforms, PII disclosure laws, and we have made this compliant with every solution out there, to include the Healthcare Insurance Portability and Accountability Act and the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, because this is a school solution. It's not our solution. It belongs and it is operated by the school. The Safe Campus is not designed to work as a student or teacher monitoring system. We do not surveil. We do not monitor. Our intent is only to teach the school to access its data, to identify high-risk students from the data that comes in, and allow them to act on behalf of all of us as parents to create safer schools. It's not a social media analytics system. As a matter of fact, we provide an anonymous texting system so that we avoid any problematic instances or claims that schools are monitoring social media. And it is not a personnel evaluation system. The system is designed, as stated, to take the school's data, ingest external data, and remain proactive and predictive in their approach to school violence. While the Safe Campus is based on the Blue Fusion predictive analytical solution, there are other components that can be added or taken off the system if the schools desire. And all these components, we have found, address the needs of schools or law enforcement departments, no matter where we've gone. We do have an incident response capability that provides real-time decision support making. We've talked about anonymous texting, which is critical. We've gotten questions from the unions because they're concerned that teachers might report and get tied to a lawsuit. It addresses a lot of the concerns that students have for not being a rat, and they can anonymously text. And there's no way we can tell where these texts come from when they come into the school's analyst. We provide social media tools, dark web data, and depending on the situation, we can integrate with law enforcement. We can do whatever the school needs to make sure that they have all the data on hand and the capabilities on hand to best leverage that data to create a safer school environment. Well, we've talked a lot about the data sources that can be used for the solution, and you look at the box on the left. These are a lot of the existing records that schools have, that law enforcement have, that we can leverage and incorporate into the design of the system for the school. But there's also public databases that can be ingested that can provide critical information when an event is imminent that the schools need. So this slide just simply demonstrates the wide amount of data that exists and our ability to ingest it, integrate it into the design that each school district wants for themselves. So as you can see here, basically there is no limit to the types of data connections that we can design for the school or the types of data that they can bring in. We can incorporate their own data sets and sensors, public databases, social media alerts, open source data, doesn't matter. We can ensure that depending on the school's desire, we can design all this into their Safe Campus solution for the benefit of parents, teachers, students, everybody that is associated with the school. And through the ingestion of that data on the left, through our Blue Fusion platform, which includes the components we addressed just 2 slides ago, you can see the outputs that the schools can now provide themselves to make decisions with or without local authorities, healthcare officials, whomever it might be. They can provide alerts. The system we can design alerts on for the system for certain pieces of information that come in. The system provides reports. They can do trend analysis and case studies to be used to train teachers as the system evolves and is more and more integrated into the school system itself. So we at Blue Light feel that the Safe Campus, besides being the only predictive approach to school violence on the market, is through its design the most affordable and effective one available for our schools to protect our students as well. By designing this system to leverage existing databases from within the school, no matter how old or how unique they are, and integrating external data sources, by applying proven technologies and the additional capabilities of the components that we bring as part of this solution, the Safe Campus can definitely help our schools improve security and, more importantly, prevent violence and provide our students the safe learning environment that they deserve and that us as parents want. My name is Bruce Parkman, and I greatly respect and appreciate the time you have spent listening to me discuss our approach to school violence, the Safe Campus. Thank you.